What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have loads of volleyball to discuss. As UCLA men's volleyball repeats as national champions. How did those gutty little Bruins do it? And who did they take down along the way? Also, USC beach volleyball, 4-peats. Yes, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4-peats. As they took down a bunch of talented opponents along the way. Was it easy, or did they just breeze by them? Also, how about Georgetown of Kentucky winning the NAIA Men's Volleyball Championship over the top seed of the Masters College? What happened in that tournament, and how wrong was I when it came to that entire tournament? Also, Loyola of Los Angeles and Miracosta made their way to the CIF Southern Section Division 1 Boys Volleyball Final. Who will win in the South Bay Showdown? Also, we have some Pro Volleyball Federation to discuss as two teams clinched playoff spots, and the NVA is back! Kinda. As there were some matches yesterday as of this recording. So hand me a volleyball, set up the net, as I'm about to start up some volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IESR Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you have made your way to episode 245 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let us begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without IE Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on Spreaker. Please do follow IE Sports Radio on several different social media platforms such as X, formerly known as Twitter, TikTok for how long that's going to be up, and on Instagram. And we also have a Facebook page. All you have to do is type in the word IE, then sports, then radio in the search bar, like us, and follow us on Facebook. And we also have a website, iesportsradio.com, for all of your latest sports news, our blog, our Hall of Fame, our Fans of the Month, our pages dedicated to each podcast, such as Set Point, our community forum, and our merchandise shop. For the last 9 years, going on 10 years in about 9 more days, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel, which is kind of what I did, to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. And let's give a huge shout to one of our 2 sponsors right now.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
Our second sponsor is Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, the single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, it's low in sugar and high in protein. This is some of the best jerky you can get your hands on, and all you have to do is visit planetjerky.net and place your order. In addition, prices are slashed for the time being, and if you get an order's worth of $50 or more, you will get it shipped for free. Once again, a huge shout out to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. Follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. And the way you can follow Setpoint on social media is on X, formerly known as Twitter, at set_point.ie, and on Instagram at set_point.iesr. And you can follow me, Teran Rodriguez, on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Teran Rodriguez1. Also, if you are listening live on Spreaker or listening on the playback, first and foremost, thank you. You will also notice there is a support button. If you want to be a supporter of Setpoint on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports, it costs $5 a month. This will get you access to past interviews not posted on Instagram or on the Twitterverse, and future episodes of Setpoint Extra Points, and some exclusive one-on-one podcasts that I did. If you all noticed on Spreaker, I did a little bit of a recap of the first round of the National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Tournament. So I'm hopefully going to be ramping up my exclusive content for those that are interested. I definitely want to continue to try to provide that sort of thing, and maybe do some other things to get you all peaked in terms of that interest. Well, with all that said and done, let us begin, as Jen B, Ralph Cleese, and Larry B are all in the chat room. They're all greeting me. Thank you very much. And Larry B said it best. It was a busy week of volleyball. And let's begin with some National Collegiate Men's Volleyball. So as we all know, last week was the tournament. It was a fantastic event to cover. I really enjoyed covering the National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Tournament in person. It was actually my first ever NCAA volleyball tournament that I've covered in any sort of capacity. But honestly, I really enjoyed covering the tournament at Long Beach State, which is, I will just say, it is my alma mater. For those that actually do wonder why I cover a lot of Long Beach State matches, it's because I have kind of connections with Long Beach State, and it's my alma mater. I try not to be too much of a homer to the beach, but it is what it is. Alright, but enough about that. So the first round was just all sweeps. Long Beach State swept Belmont Abbey. Well, let's go in chronological order here. So, UCLA swept Fort Valley State, which was not really too much of a surprise. Nothing against Fort Valley State, but this was their first ever appearance in the tournament. It was still a fantastic and historic feat for them to make the NCAA tournament, and for them to basically make the SIAC conference known. And then also after that, we had UC Irvine sweeping Penn State, which I'm not going to say it was too surprising. I had UC Irvine winning that matchup. However, I did not have them sweeping them. I really thought the first set was what really swung the momentum from Penn State. If Penn State wins that first set, they might have a better shot, but unfortunately, that was not the case. And then Long Beach State swept Belmont Abbey, which I don't think was too surprising. And then to close off the first round, we had Grand Canyon sweeping Ohio State, which for Ohio State, I feel dropping that first set, which was 25-23, was really what kind of threw the Buckeyes off their A game. But I will just say, it was still a pretty underrated matchup. I did not see the Long Beach State Belmont Abbey matchup. I had a PA announce a high school boys volleyball match. And then I also missed the first set of the Ohio State Grand Canyon match. I kind of got back about halfway through, maybe less than halfway through the second set, but we didn't really miss too much. So it was just all sweeps in the first round. But the second round, oh man, that was pretty intense. So the semifinals, the first one was between UCLA and UC Irvine. So the first one between the Anteaters and the Bruins, it was a fast start for UC Irvine. They really got off to a great start to start the game. But about close to midway through the first set, Akil Tengatur goes down with what appeared to be a thigh injury as he landed awkwardly, and he was out the remainder of the game. And he passed the ball really well. He was passing the ball really well, and he's kind of the unsung hero for UC Irvine. So instead of playing him, David Niffen had to go to Will Darcy, who actually did not get the start at opposite. That was actually Nolan Flexen. But the UC Irvine did take the first set. The second set did go to UCLA, which kind of was in narrow fashion. UC Irvine was doing everything it can to try to strike back at UCLA, but unfortunately, it was just to no avail. And then the third set, that was when UCLA hit the gas, and they just did not slow down. They were really on their A game, and they were crossing their T's and dotting their I's. And they eventually went up 2-1 in the match as UC Irvine was in a bit of a pickle. I thought this was kind of going to end like the second meeting between UCLA and UC Irvine, with UC Irvine winning the first set and then dropping the next three. But fortunately for UC Irvine, they served really tough in that fourth set. I thought that was probably one of their better serving sets, and they took that fourth set, 25-18, and they forced a fifth set. Now, the first four sets were 25-22 UC Irvine, 25-20 UCLA, 25-16 UCLA, and 25-18 UC Irvine. But the fifth set, it was rather tight through the first 10 points. It was 5-5. UC Irvine led 10-9, and then eventually UCLA kind of pulled ahead and started pulling away slowly but surely. But honestly, UC Irvine gave it everything they had, and it really sucks that Akil Tengatur just went down. Would UC Irvine have won? I can't really determine that. I think it would have been a little bit more competitive. I really think it could have gone a little bit more. It could have gone either way. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to say that UCLA would not have won, because UCLA was serving tough and they were putting a lot of pressure on UC Irvine. But I will just say UCLA deserved to win, and it sucks that UC Irvine had to go out like that. But they did everything they could, and honestly, they earned my respect a lot more. I mean, they threw the kitchen sink at UCLA and then some. I knew it was going to be a barn burner, and that was my thing going into the semifinals. Would we get a barn burner, or would we get UCLA really flexing their muscles? And fortunately, we got a very good barn burner, as I was just impressed overall. The final stat line are as follows. UCLA was led by Ethan Champlin, who had 19 kills. He hit .469. UCLA as a team hit .404. Cooper Robinson added 11 kills. Merrick McHenry added 10 kills. Ido David added 9 kills. Zach Rama also was a big spark plug off the bench for UCLA despite his numbers. Guy Guinness added 3 kills. Like I said, UCLA hit .404, and they outblocked UC Irvine 11.5 to 7.5. UC Irvine was led by Halir Henno, who had 22 kills. He hit .311. The Anteaters as a team, they hit .303. Nolan Flexen added 13 kills. Max Grigoriev added 11 kills. Akil Tengatur had 2 kills before going out with that injury, which was so unfortunate. I really hate that the worst part is that was his last ever match. That's going to be his last collegiate match. So I really wish he didn't have to go out like that. But it is what it is sometimes. You just can't turn off injuries like you can in Madden. But overall, UC Irvine just fell short to the Anteaters. It would have been great to see the Anteaters make their first final since 2013, but they did win their first tournament match since 2013 when they wound up winning it all. So they have that feather in their cap. And honestly, UC Irvine returns a good portion of their team. They return Halir Henno, Max Grigoriev, Will Darcy. The big question mark, some people are going to say the big question mark is their setter. They have Joe Carlos for next year. Remember, Brett Sheward transferred from Hawaii over to UC Irvine. Joe Carlos kind of took a backseat, but he took that in a big way. And if you saw my interview with David Niffen and Brett Sheward, he took it like a champ, and he was a put the team versus himself kind of guy. And I respect that from Joe. Also, I say I respect that from Joe just because I covered him back in his high school days. But my big question mark for UC Irvine will probably be the libero position, who will replace Cole Power, who had himself a nice little stint at UC Irvine. Remember, he started off at UCLA, then he transferred for his senior year, and then his final year of eligibility. So I think UC Irvine is going to be up there next season, but I will just say I can't pencil them in as national champs. And you also have to wonder if Halir Heno wants to play professionally. Now, from what I've been hearing, and these are rumors, Halir Heno wants to get his master's, and he wants to be all in on getting his diploma and all that, his degree, all that sort of thing. So don't take this from me. This is just rumors, and that Halir Heno wants to earn his master's from UC Irvine as well. So I don't think he'll be going anywhere unless a big-time club. Remember, he's going to be on the French national team most likely, and the dude's a baller. There's a reason why he was named the AVCA National Player of the Year the night before the semifinals. But I will just say UC Irvine is going to be big next year, and do not count them out. And they could probably be the class of 2025 in terms of the NCAA men's volleyball tournament. Jumping over to the second semifinal, we have Long Beach State versus Grand Canyon. Now, the first set, Grand Canyon led 24-20. Long Beach State scored 4 points to get themselves back in it, but Grand Canyon rattled off 2 straight points, and they actually won a challenge from a Cam Thorne kill that was originally called out being in. And I gotta say, Matt Worley, that was a big and gutsy challenge, and there's a reason why he was named the AVCA Coach of the Year in men's volleyball. But the Lopes took the first set 26-24. They also had to go overtime in the second set as they took that one 28-26. And I was thinking to myself, is this really how Long Beach State's going to go out in the semifinals on their home court? No. Long Beach State was actually down 9-6, but then they rattled off 7 straight points to lead 13-9, and then they never looked back as they took that third set 25-18. Their blocking was on display in that third set, and there's tough serving. Then the fourth set, Long Beach State narrowly took that fourth set 25-23. Grand Canyon had their chances to try to pull away, but unfortunately Long Beach State had the answer for them. Then the fifth set, Long Beach State got off to an early lead. They led 6-3. Long Beach State's lead was eventually cut down to 10-9 by Grand Canyon, but Long Beach State outscored the Lopes 5-1 down the stretch as they took the fifth set 15-10, advancing to the national championship match. As the Beach was led by Skylar Varga, who had 20 kills, Sotiris Shapanis added 16 kills, Dearis McRaven added 9 kills. The Beach as a team hit 326. They outblocked Grand Canyon 13.5-12. The Digs were pretty much neck and neck. The Lopes won that category by 1. Long Beach State really served tough. They had 7 aces compared to Grand Canyon's 2. I think Long Beach State, that's where they excelled the most. They wound up winning the serving battle. Grand Canyon was led by Camden Gianni, who had 17 kills. Jared Anderson added 16 kills. Cameron Thorne and Jackson Hickman both had 11 kills. Though they had a really balanced night in terms of their offense, but unfortunately they just could not pull off the win. Nick Slight added 50 assists to go along with 2 kills, which he actually had added a highlight kill, which was pretty impressive. I accidentally deleted that and had to re-download it, which was definitely worth it. But unfortunate end for Grand Canyon, losing in the semifinal. It's even worse when you build a 2-0 lead and then unfortunately it wasn't their fault, but Long Beach State just proved how talented they are and how deep they are roster-wise. But I will say it might be a little tough for Grand Canyon to get back to the semifinals, if not the championship, because Grand Canyon, before this tournament, they did not win a National Collegiate Men's Volleyball tournament match before they beat Ohio State, and they have never made the national championship. That could have changed this past week, but unfortunately, they just ran into a buzzsaw after late in that third set, or midway through the third set. So there's that matchup right there. Then we have the national championship matchup, the matchup that I predicted, Long Beach State versus UCLA. First set was actually rather tight. UCLA actually burnt through their first 2 timeouts at 12-9. Well, first timeout came very early. I think it came at like 7-2, and then the second one came at 12-9. Then UCLA really started to get it going. They eventually took that first set 25-21. They were serving pretty tough, and they were getting the ball to their best players. And then the second set, UCLA got off to a better start, and they never looked back as they took the second set 25-20. Now, the third set, UCLA had their chance to win. They actually were down 23-21, and then they go on a 2-0 run, and then Andrew Rowan deals a service ace. Like, that was the big thing for UCLA. They served so tough, and that was going to be the key to if they wanted to win. Obviously, the offense and defense was a thing, but when it came to the serving, they needed to really serve tough. So UCLA had match championship point at 24-23. Long Beach State staved it off, and they never allowed UCLA to have another championship point as they took the third set 29-27, which was actually the longest set numerical-wise or numbers-wise in terms of the set score. Then the fourth set, Long Beach State tried to get off to a little bit of a hot start. UCLA wasn't having it. Every time Long Beach State tried to pull even with UCLA just had an answer. It was either Ethan Champlin or Merrick McHenry or Cooper Robinson or Ito David. Either way, UCLA wound up winning the match off of a overpass kill error. Oh my God. The ball went right to Skylar Varga, and then he tried to free ball it, or he tried to hit the ball onto the line, but unfortunately he free balled it out of bounds, and that was how Long Beach State wound up losing. They lost. UCLA won set 4, 25-21, and the celebration was on. I have to give some props to Alan Knipe for not challenging the last call. I don't know if he had any challenges. I think he had one, but sometimes coaches will challenge the final call to delay the celebration, but I give props to Alan Knipe for not challenging. As the Bruins were led by Ethan Champlin, who had 15 kills. He was the most outstanding player of the tournament, and for good reason, and he deserved it. Cooper Robinson added 12 kills. Merrick McHenry added 10 kills. Ito David added 9 kills. McHenry made the all-tournament team. He hit 8-18. He only had one hitting error, which he hit that one wide in set 1, but after that, he never had another hitting error the rest of the way. And the scary thing is about UCLA is that UCLA won the second set without setting Merrick McHenry once. That was just how crazy UCLA was in terms of them being stacked across the board. Andrew Rowan had 46 assists. He also had 3 digs and a service ace. He made the all-tournament team. Long Beach State was led by Skylar Varga, who had 11 kills. He made the all-tournament team. Sotir Chapanis added 12 kills. Skylar Varga added 11 kills. Alan Knipe kind of had to shuffle his lineup around as he went from Clark Godbold to Nathan Harlan. Simon Tarwi also made the all-tournament team. He had 8 kills. He had 571 with no errors. Halir Heno and Camden Gianni both made the all-tournament team as well, which unfortunately was not posted by NCAA Men's Volleyball on X or Instagram. Looking at you, NCAA. Anyway, UCLA hit 297. They barely outblocked Long Beach State 12.5 to 11.5. UCLA outdug Long Beach State 38-34. The numbers were pretty much even, including the service errors and service aces. The only thing that wasn't really close was kind of the hitting percentage. Like I said, UCLA hit 297. Long Beach State hit 214. And honestly, my big takeaway for UCLA is this. First and foremost, I apologize to UCLA for picking against you again. I knew I should have gone with the whole back-to-back trend. Instead, I decided to go with Long Beach State, which was the dreaded number 2 seed, which, for those that don't know, the number 2 seed has a more often than not worse track record in terms of winning the national championship, which I find pretty funny. But unfortunately for Long Beach State, they just could not get past them. But going back to UCLA, my takeaway for them is this. Ethan Champlin left it all on the court. The dude was almost passed out at the championship celebration. I'm like, is he okay? Like, I thought he was just laying down just to soak it all in, but it looked like he was unconscious. I'm like, should I do something? Anyway, the UCLA just had an outstanding tournament, and this is what champions do. They basically do everything they can to scratch, claw, and kick and scream their way to the national championship. And this was their 21st national championship. I put 41st. I don't know why. It looked like on the introduction video that it said 40-time national champions, but I don't know. Maybe the writing just looked a little bit off. I don't know why I thought it was 40 time when it was 20 time. Maybe I forgot I multiplied by 2, but whatever. But my takeaway for Long Beach State is this. This is, I wouldn't say this is going to be tough to come back from, but it's going to be tough for them to make it back to the national championship match. I will say, Alan Knipe said it best in the press conference. This loss does not define Long Beach State as a team. Long Beach State had such a fantastic season. They won the Big West Conference tournament. They won the Big West Conference regular season title. They made the final on their home court, which I thought was impressive. Kinda. They had a lot of wins with their senior group, like Mason Briggs and Aiden Knipe and Clark Godbold, even when Clark Godbold had his ups and downs. Nathan Harlan also was the Swiss Army knife, as I like to call him. I imagine Long Beach State will be back on the big stage. They returned Skylar Varga, Sotiris Shapanis, Simon Torwey. The big question is their setter. Who's going to take over for Aiden Knipe? Now, they do have some setters on their team, and then they also have Jake Pizzanti coming in. Pizzanti is definitely a fantastic setter. Now, I'm not just saying that because his dad was a former set point guest, but I think Jake Pizzanti could win that starting setter position. I mean, we're seeing a lot of starting setters as freshmen, like Andrew Rowan of UCLA, Tread Rosenthal of Hawaii. Maybe we see Jake Pizzanti as the starting setter next year. The bigger question mark for Long Beach State will be the libero position. Who's going to be libero? Is it going to be Chris Connolly, barring he's not graduating or he's not leaving or whatnot? Is it going to be someone else? Is it going to be an incoming freshman? Like, you can't replace Mason Briggs that fast. You cannot replace Aiden Knipe that fast. It's going to take some time to replace those players. And I also got to say, Long Beach State returns De'Aris McRaven. I think that having De'Aris is going to be big as well. So they returned their middle blocker core. So I don't think Long Beach State is losing all that much. I mean, they lose a good portion of their senior class, but they return some key players like Torwey, like McRaven, like Varga, like Shapanis, and they have some other key players that they didn't get a chance to play as well. Like, Long Beach State has such a deep bench that they either have to tell their other players that made the team that you either have to redshirt or maybe you have to find a JUCO to play at, and then we can have you to come back. Kind of like how De'Aris McRaven had to he committed to Long Beach State, and then he was told he's got to develop his craft more, and that's when he went to OCC, wound up winning a state championship with the Pirates back in 2022, and then came back to Long Beach State, and then look at him now. But overall, my overall takeaway, and I will just say, it was still amazing covering the National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Tournament. I loved bringing you all content, even though Twitter or X thought I was a robot and I had to go through like CAPTCHA tests to basically prove that I was a human and not a robot. So that was kind of annoying, but it is what it is. I'm glad to have provided you all content with my questions that I asked during the press conferences and with some of the highlights and whatnot. So I wouldn't want to trade it for the world. And honestly, I'm here to represent you guys, the people. I gotta give the people what they want and what they need, just like Marcus Losgreat, who popped in the chat room. He said, salute! I appreciate you, Marcus. But that is going to do it for the National Collegiate Men's Volleyball portion of the show. Jumping over to some beach volleyball. So the National Collegiate Beach Volleyball Tournament was this past weekend, or this past week. Well, weekend, just because Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It all started on Friday, where North Florida wound up winning its first round matchup, which did not surprise me in the slightest. I was not surprised that North Florida wound up winning. I kind of called them winning, which I know I'm not trying to be the I called it guy, but honestly, it was what it was, basically. Yeah. as North Florida took down Chattanooga. Chattanooga was technically the tournament host because this was played in Gulf Shores, Alabama at Gulf Place. But North Florida wound up losing to USC in the first round 3-0. North Florida beat Chattanooga 3-0. Then in the other first round matchups, I like how they called the opening round. They called this opening round, which was the play-in match between North Florida and Chattanooga. Then they had first round, and then they called the second round, the quarterfinals, the second round, which I think makes zero sense. But then again, this is the NCAA. They're giving the shaft to everything that's not NCAA women's volleyball, but whatever. Also, we had LMU taking down Hawaii, or not Lincoln Memorial, Loyola Marymount, as Loyola Marymount took down Hawaii 3-1. Cal Poly took down Arizona State 3-0. Florida State took down Washington 3-1. Stanford took down Georgia State 3-0. Now, this was the big upset right here. This was a big upset right here. LSU took down TCU 3-2. This duel right here went all the way down to the final pair in a third set, and LSU managed to come up big. They took down TCU, which I thought was impressive. I really thought that LSU beating TCU was big time. It was the battle of the purple schools, but I was a little disappointed that TCU just did not have it in them. I thought TCU would have done a little bit better. They obviously wound up winning the conference. I think it's the American Athletic Conference. There is no Big 12 when it comes to beach volleyball, which I think is lame. But they wound up winning their conference tournament. I thought LSU wasn't the same team, but I'm also just going to say, to quote Shaquille O'Neal, I owe you an apology. I wasn't really familiar with your game. And I also forgot that LSU is known for pulling off upsets in terms of the beach volleyball tournament. And they play some of their best beach volleyball in the tournament. And I forgot that LSU beat USC. But that was a kind of a home court thing, in my opinion. I thought that was a home court thing, but it is what it is. LSU pulled off the upset against TCU. Then we had Cal defeating Long Beach State 3-1. Now, I picked Long Beach State to beat Cal just because I thought Long Beach State would have had a little bit revenge factor in it. And then Mike Campbell, their head coach, said, we like this matchup. It's just all about executing down the stretch. Unfortunately, I forgot Long Beach State only had 2 seniors. And I don't think neither of them played in the duel, which, that's bad right there. I should have never. Why did I think Long Beach State was going to pull off that win? And besides, Cal was battle-tested in the Pac-12. They played the likes of Stanford and UCLA, which beat Texas A&M Corpus Christi, and USC and Washington. Come on. And Long Beach State, I will say, they had a great season, but they didn't really have that true top 5 win. They had one top 5 win against Cal Poly, but that was in the Big West Conference tournament, and I think Long Beach State figured it out against Cal Poly when it came to beach volleyball after they lost the first go-around. But Long Beach State hopefully will be back. They returned the majority of their players, and who knows, maybe they'll get some transfers and whatnot. We'll see. And then in the second round or quarterfinals, we had USC taking down LMU 3-0. Now, 3-0 means that the duel ended when USC wound up winning the duel. When they wound up clinching that third point, the duel ends, and then everything else is a did not finish. So we don't know if LMU would have won on the other courts, but the final score was 3-0 in favor of USC. And then Cal Poly took down Florida State 3-1. I called this upset. I will just say I definitely saw this one coming. Cal Poly is definitely have had their best season in terms of beach volleyball, and I don't think Florida State had the same team. I think the turning point for Cal Poly was the adversity they faced. They lost in the elimination bracket of the Big West Conference tournament to Long Beach State. And that was disappointing because they were the top overall seed, and they just didn't look like the top overall seed that teams had come to know when it came to them. But I thought Cal Poly, that they had faced a lot of adversity. I feel that was kind of the turning point. Florida State didn't really have a bad loss per se, but they just didn't have the same adversity that Cal Poly did. Or the same adversity Cal Poly faced. But overall, Cal Poly advanced to the semifinals. Here was another big upset. Speaking of upsets, that upset I saw coming. This one I certainly did not. LSU took down Stanford 3-2. Keep in mind, LSU is the number 11 seed. Stanford is the 3 seed. Some had Stanford even advancing to the national championship. Some had Stanford even winning it all. But LSU said, get that out of here. LSU wound up upsetting the 3 seed Stanford. It came down to the final match in the third set, and LSU was able to eke out that win and advance to the semifinals, where they would play UCLA, which wound up defeating Cal 3-0. Then the semifinals, which was the same day as the quarterfinals or second round, USC took down Cal Poly 3-0, which, if you're seeing, USC was taking down every opponent 3-0. And then also UCLA cooled off LSU 3-1 to advance to the national championship, which I called. I mean, everyone probably called UCLA versus USC in the national championship. So the national championship between USC and UCLA was underway yesterday, early in the morning at 8 a.m. on the Pacific Coast time, and then 11 a.m. on the East Coast time, like in Alabama. So USC wound up winning the first point on the twos court, courtesy of Madison White and Maddie Kriz. Now the twos court was kind of unpredictable. I couldn't really predict if USC was going to be strong in the twos court. I feel that they definitely had their moments in terms of I knew they were going to be strong in terms of the 1s and 3s pairs, but unfortunately I didn't know if they would have excelled in some of the other pairs. I thought if UCLA got off to a 2-0 lead, and they took the first set in both of those matches in the duel, the 2s pair and the 4s pair, I thought UCLA would have had a much better and higher chance of winning the duel altogether, which I thought was pretty incredible, if you ask me. But unfortunately for UCLA, USC was able to take the second set. They actually took the second set in dramatic fashion on the 2s pair, and then the third set, USC was able to eke out the win, which I thought was pretty incredible, if you ask me. And they won on the 2s pair, which was courtesy of Madison White and Maddie Kriz. And I think that the UCLA pair was Abby Van Winkle, or I'm sorry, not Abby Van Winkle. I'm wrong Van Winkle. Tessa Van Winkle. Tessa Van Winkle and I'm blanking. And I'm sorry. Now Tessa Van Winkle and Jane Wishmarsh were the 4s. Perry Brennan and Devin Newberry were the 2s. Now, I was a little surprised that USC wound up beating Devin Newberry and Perry Brennan, just because those are veterans, and I know USC has some veterans on their team as well, but Devin Newberry and Perry Brennan, they're definitely one of the better 2s pairs that I've seen. The 4s pair was also pretty surprising, as Jaden Whitmarsh and Tessa Van Winkle wound up losing that one. It was actually rather dramatic, as Tessa Van Winkle and Jaden Whitmarsh actually took the first set. They rallied back to take the first set, and then unfortunately they just could not take that second set. They even had a match point in that one. And then the third set, Ashley Pater and I forget bad time for me to forget the other pair. Ashley Pater, if you don't know who she is, she's a freshman. She is just straight up phenomenal, if you ask me. But Ashley Pater and her partner wound up taking the second point of the duel, which I thought was pretty impressive, if you ask me. And then the third point wound up coming from the Norse twins. I will also just say the national championship in beach volleyball, all the matches went 3 sets, which was the first, and that's pretty much where it all boils down to. That third set, all bets are off. But the Norse twins, Nicole and Audrey Norse, just like last year, they clinched the duel for USC as they wound up winning the 5th set. I think it was like 15-11, 15-12, off of a block or a overpass kill from Audrey Norse. And Yeah, Larry B said it best. The Norse twins are incredible, and the fact that the thing is that they actually are big fans of the late Kobe Bryant. They had that Mamba mentality. They were not ready to lose to UCLA, as USC four-peated, which I thought was pretty incredible. And I will just say, I had the distinct honor of interviewing Dane Blanton before the NCAA beach volleyball season, and it was quite nice. As you can go check out that interview on Instagram at set_point IESR. That was before I went to the UC Irvine USC match at Galen Center. But that's incredible. Four-peat, we haven't really seen too many four-peats in NCAA sports, but USC just rewrote the chapter. They rewrote the book, and they continue to be the golden standard of NCAA beach volleyball. Mike Pat also popped into the chat room. He said, it's the best volleyball podcast on the internet. Well, thank you, Mike. But back to USC. My thing is for USC, and my takeaway for them is this. They earned their stripes in terms of that national championship. The twos and fours pairs, they lost the first set, and they could have easily folded, and it was looking pretty grim for USC in some of those in those sets, in those second sets, but they managed to dig deep, and I will just say, I really do apologize to Ashley Pater and her partner. I didn't think that Jaden Whitmarsh and Tessa Van Winkle would lose in the fours pair. I said last week that UCLA was probably going to win in the fours pair, and then maybe USC would win in the twos pair, and then 1, 3, and 5 would be the most unpredictable. So I do apologize, and to quote Shaquille O'Neal, I owe you an apology. I wasn't really familiar with your game. But Ashley Pater is one of the more phenomenal freshmen in the NCAA beach volleyball class of 2028. So I think she and Aaron Inskeep are going to be what makes the game of NCAA beach volleyball quite phenomenal. And I will also just say USC beach volleyball is inevitable. They are that team. They are them. And it's quite phenomenal. My only big thing is for USC beach volleyball is, can they repeat next year? That's my thing. Can they repeat as national champions next year? And can UCLA get back to the national championship? Because they lose a lot when it comes to their roster too. That's my big question. And then other history that was made is that Molly Phillips became the first player to win a national championship in indoor women's volleyball and indoor beach volleyball, or beach volleyball. I'm sorry, not indoor beach volleyball, but indoor women's volleyball and beach volleyball. So that was quite phenomenal. But USC isn't the first team to win a national championship in beach volleyball and in indoor women's volleyball. That honor actually belonged to Tampa, as they wound up winning the NCAA Division II title. Yeah, the NCAA Division II title in women's indoor volleyball, and then they wound up winning the National Collegiate Beach Volleyball title, which I think that was probably in the NAIA. I'm not entirely certain, but it's still pretty incredible if you ask me. So that's what I was told, and hopefully hopefully I wasn't being tricked. I don't think I was being tricked because I saw it being pretty official. But I will just say, I think it might be a little tough for USC and UCLA to get back to the national championship. But now that I've said that, I bet you anything, they'll be back in the national championship, and every other team is not going to be able to stop it. And I will say, for the tournament, I feel TCU and Stanford just drastically underachieved. I had Stanford going to the semifinals, I will admit that, and I will also admit that LSU was playing some of its best volleyball in the tournament, but I will also just say I did not expect Stanford to just be that blah, and I also didn't expect TCU to be that bad either. Like, to get one and done, it seems like ever since outside of last year, TCU doesn't play its best volleyball when it comes to the tournament, the National Collegiate Tournament, which is very sad because TCU is a semi-storied program. They don't have the championships like UCLA and USC does. No one has the championships that USC does. But they always are a perennial top 10, top 5 program. But for them to lose in the first round is just disappointing. I knew TCU wasn't going to win it all. I didn't think they were even going to advance to the semifinals. I thought Stanford would. but I also didn't expect them to just look so bad again. It looked like they were reverting back to their 2022 form where they won in the first round, they lost in the second round, and then they lost immediately in the elimination bracket. Back when there was such thing as an elimination bracket in the NCAA tournament. But yeah, I will say Stanford and TCU just drastically underachieved. LSU drastically overachieved, and one of their pairs made the all-tournament team. So there's that right there. And then Cal Poly should be back next year. I think Cal Poly will be back on the big stage because Todd Rogers does an outstanding job. And it wasn't just the Lindsay Sparks effect. It was the Erin Inskeep effect. She is probably the best freshman. She and Ashley Pater, like I said, they're probably what's best for the class of 2008 NCAA beach volleyball class. But that's going to do it for the National Collegiate Beach Volleyball Tournament recap. So let's recap some NAIA men's volleyball. So the NAIA men's volleyball tournament, I will just say, I was doing my darndest to try to keep tabs on that. I really was. I'm sorry if I couldn't. I really am. But for the NAIA men's volleyball tournament, let's just say I was very bad in terms of predicting the tournament. I was awful, dude. I was so bad. Like my Final Four didn't even come close to the Final Four that actually happened. Only one team wound up making the Final Four, which was the Masters College. Every other team that I predicted, which unfortunately which I predicted to make the Final Four, which was Grandview, Ottawa of Arizona, and Vanguard, they wound up losing. As Grandview was upset by Westcliff in the first round of pool play in 5 sets, Vanguard took down Lawrence Tech in 3. Ottawa of Arizona was also upset by Reinhardt of Georgia in 4 sets. And like I said, Masters College took down Mount Mercy. They weren't upset. And then in the second round of pool play, St. Xavier took down Westcliff 3-1, or in 4 sets. Georgetown of Kentucky took down Lawrence Tech in straight sets. William Penn took down Reinhardt in 4 sets. And then Jamestown of North Dakota took down Mount Mercy in 4 sets. And then the last day of pool play, which either made or broke teams. St. Xavier took down Grandview in 3 sets, or straight sets, which they advanced to the semifinal round. Georgetown of Kentucky took down Vanguard in 5 sets, which I did not expect. I thought, but here's the thing about Vanguard. They actually had 3 match points in that 5th set, but unfortunately Georgetown just shut the door on them. It's kind of a bummer because Vanguard is going to the NCAA Division 1-2 or National Collegiate. Yeah, they move up from the NAIA level all the way to the NCAA level, which I think is pretty cool. Vanguard will be participating in the MPSF conference, which I think is awesome, as well as Menlo. So you have that going on for them. William Penn took down Ottawa of Arizona in 5 sets, and then the Masters College took down Jamestown in 4 sets, which I thought was kind of expected, but I thought that was the first bit of adversity that the Masters College would have faced. They haven't faced a whole lot of adversity this season, but in the semifinals of the NAIA men's volleyball tournament, we had Georgetown taking down St. Xavier in 5, and then the Masters College eked out a win over William Penn in 5 sets. So the NAIA men's volleyball tournament kind of followed the same pattern that the National Collegiate men's volleyball tournament followed in terms of its semifinals, which I thought was pretty incredible. But the national championship was between Georgetown of Kentucky and the Masters College. I will just say, Georgetown was the 7th seed overall in this tournament. The 7th seed, meaning nobody probably had them advancing out of pool play. And like I mentioned, I only got 1 out of my 4 picks correct. The Masters College was the only team that I had advancing, which actually did advance out of pool play. Like I mentioned, Ottawa, Vanguard, and Grandview, they all lost. But this is what I get for not picking any upsets. But in the NAIA men's volleyball final, we had Georgetown sweeping the Masters College. Yes, they swept the Masters College. This is the number 1 overall seed in the Masters College getting swept by Georgetown, the Tigers of Kentucky. 25-23, 25-18, and 25-20. First set, I think, was kind of the turning point of the match, and that was kind of the triumphant turn of the match, as I feel if Georgetown did not win that set, the Masters College is feeling pretty good about themselves going into set 2, as Georgetown hit only 200 in that first set, while the Masters College hit 28, which is, they only had a hitting percentage of under 100, as Georgetown was led by Krzysztof Kowalski, who had 15 kills. He hit 444. Ryan Gunn added 9 kills. Georgetown as a team, they hit 311. The digs were well even. Georgetown as a team had 12 blocks to the Mustangs, or the Masters College's, 4.5. Georgetown also served the ball very efficiently. They only had 8 service errors compared to the Masters' 13. Aces were pretty even between the two teams, as Georgetown had 6 while the Masters had 5. The Masters College was led by Will Avera, who had 9 kills. Diego Perez, Mason Mullins, and Cole Oliver all had 6 kills each. But the Masters College hit 167. That's probably due to Georgetown's blocking. But those Tigers of Georgia wound up taking the NAIA Men's Volleyball Championship, which is so incredible. That is so big right there. They upset the number 2 seed in pool play. They upset, I wouldn't say they upset, but they upset the 6 seed, and then they also upset the 1 seed. So they took down the 1 and 2 seed, and everyone thought that they were underdogs or undercats, but they wound up winning it all, which I think is pretty cool right there. Even though they weren't really the lowest seed in their pool. But that is that for the NAIA Men's Volleyball Tournament. Congratulations to Georgetown of Kentucky beating the Masters College in straight sets. Honestly, my takeaway for the Masters College is this. That loss does not define them as a team. But I will say, I feel they didn't have too much adversity. The reason why I picked the Masters College is because I feel they had been playing complete volleyball throughout most of the way. I am just flabbergasted that they just laid a goose egg. They had not been swept all season. I think this was their only sweep. This was their only sweep in NAIA men's volleyball. The other sweep came at the hands of Concordia Irvine, which they're not an NCAA men's volleyball program. They are an NCAA men's volleyball program. They're not an NAIA men's volleyball program. They used to, but aren't. But mad props to Georgetown. They deserve the win. But that's going to do it for all of collegiate volleyball. Yes, that is the last bit of collegiate volleyball. And until probably July, if not August, we won't be talking about a whole lot of college volleyball. Unless it's like NCAA women's volleyball transfer news and whatnot. Alright, but that is that for the collegiate volleyball portion of the show. So let's talk a little CIF Southern Section Division I boys volleyball. And then we'll go to a commercial breaky break. So pool play continued on Tuesday, where Loyola hosted Mater Dei, Newport Harbor hosted Huntington Beach, Corona Del Mar hosted Tesoro, and Miracosta hosted Edison. So on Tuesday, April 30th, which I will just say, I really hate that the National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Tournament had to start the same day as one of the pool play matches. If it were up to me, I'd move the pool play matches to Wednesday. But I digress. But Loyola swept Mater Dei. According to former set point guest Jake Nuneviller, they actually blew 2 6-point leads in 2 different sets, which I think is so heartbreaking. That's got to be tough if you're Loyola, tough if you're Mater Dei. But you have to play your best volleyball at that point. I don't know if Eli McGee was healthy for Mater Dei, but I will also just say Mater Dei has other players that could step up in the absence of Eli McGee, but also players that could step up when Eli McGee is struggling. But Eli McGee is a cornerstone player. And then also in Pool A, we had Huntington Beach taking down Newport Harbor in 4 sets. So from what I was told from former set point guest Craig Pizzanti, he told me that their team practically played their best match of the season. And that if it weren't for set 2, that could have probably been a sweep because Huntington Beach led most of the way, and they led big in that second set, but Newport Harbor managed to come back to take that second set 27-25, but Huntington Beach just hit the gas right after that, and they left Newport Harbor in the dust. It's the Oilers' first win at Newport Harbor since 2016, so good win for Huntington Beach. And then we had Miracosta taking down Edison on their home court in 4 sets. That's not really too big of a surprise. I mean, Edison does have a lot of firepower on their team, and Miracosta did not have any familiarity with them. But I will say Miracosta bounced back really nice after losing that second set 28-26. I think Miracosta definitely has that it factor with a lot of good players, such as Cooper Keene. Victor Loyola was leading the way, leading the charge, Mateo Furbringer, etc., etc. And then the match that I attended was Corona Del Mar versus Tesoro. I also PA announced that match as the Sea Kings took down the Titans in 4 sets. Nothing too surprising. I heard that Tesoro had a few players out, but CDM was practically carried by one man in Sterling Foley. And then the final day of pool play. So at that point, Newport Harbor needed to win, and then they needed Mater Dei to beat Huntington Beach. Or Newport Harbor needed to sweep Loyola at Loyola. But that was to no avail, as Loyola managed to take down Newport Harbor on its home floor in 4 sets. Now, I actually got word from one of my buddies who PA announced that Newport Harbor had a few set point opportunities. They led 24-22, 24-23, and I think 26-25, and then they just could not convert the set point opportunities. So I feel that's more so Loyola being a great team. I don't think... Like I said last week, I think Newport Harbor is a good team, but this year I just feel that they haven't been the same ever since they lost to CDM. Ever since they lost to CDM, they've gone 5-4, and against some of their top tier competition like Miracosta and Huntington Beach, well, twice now, and then against Loyola, they haven't really lived up to the expectation that they were the reigning champs. But again, Loyola advanced to the CIF Southern Section Division I Championship. Newport Harbor, like I said, they needed a lot to happen. And I feel after their loss to Huntington Beach in pool play, that was kind of the nail in the coffin for them three-peating. It also will mark the first time Newport Harbor does not make the CIF Southern Section Division I Championship, or CIF Southern Section Finals in general, since 2017. And then Huntington Beach beat Mater Dei in straight sets at Huntington Beach High School. Huntington Beach was unable to make the final. Even if Newport Harbor had beaten Loyola, Huntington Beach would have been out on tiebreaker, so the deck was stacked entirely against Huntington Beach. But the scary thing about Huntington Beach is that their future looks super bright. I think Huntington Beach is going to be back on the big stage. They only lose 3 seniors, and their season continues in the CIF SoCal Regional Playoffs. And then in Pool B, Edison took down Tesoro at Tesoro High School in 4 sets. Now, the reason why that had significance, and the reason why Huntington Beach and Mater Dei had significance, is because the CIF Southern Section in Division I will have 6 teams partaking in the CIF SoCal Regional Playoffs, which I think is great, because you shouldn't have to get punished for being really good. I think your only punishment should be if you finish dead last in your pool, your season's done. But if you finish top 3 in your pool, you advance to state. I'm glad they did that. I'm glad it's not like last year where it was the top 4 teams, or the top 2 teams from each pool make the SoCal Regionals, and then everyone else goes home. Because if you know the CIF Southern Section in Division I, every team in girls volleyball that makes the Division I playoffs goes to state no matter what. Whereas in boys volleyball, it's not the entire teams that make Division I. It's only a handful of select teams, which I totally disagree with. But Edison took down Tesoro, ending Tesoro's season, and like I mentioned, Huntington Beach ended Mater Dei's season. And then in the the other pool play match in Pool B, Miracosta took down Corona Del Mar in 4 sets. Now, I was kind of surprised that Miracosta took down Corona Del Mar. I did not think that the Sea Kings would lose, just because Sterling Foley is a straight-up beast. I've talked a whole lot about how Sterling Foley is going to make such a great impact for USC next season, and he's practically had to carry Corona Del Mar throughout the entire season. Either the Sea Kings are just inexperienced, or they just don't have a Sterling Foley type of player. But I will say this, Miracosta had a great game plan for them. They blitzed CDM from the get-go, and then the second set, Miracosta was actually they were down in separate parts of the set. I think it was by like 2 or 4 points, and then Costa just hit the gas, and then they just did not look back, winning the second set. CDM wound up winning the third set, but unfortunately for them, that's kind of where the buck stopped, as Costa wound up taking the fourth set, 25-22, and they took the match. So the final will be Miracosta versus Loyola. And for those that actually do know this geographically, this will mark the first time that the CIF Southern Section Division I Boys Volleyball Final will not have a team from Orange County. As it marks the last time that happened was 2012, when the same teams, Miracosta and Loyola, wound up making the CIF Southern Section Division I Final. But we get the South Bay matchup between Miracosta and Loyola. Miracosta of Manhattan Beach and Loyola of Los Angeles. Alright, so I'm going to try to predict this, and then we'll go to a commercial break. Alright, I really like both of these teams. I think both teams are playing at a high level. I think Loyola, obviously being led by Sean Kelly, is big time for them. And then Miracosta getting Cooper Keene back was so big. I think them having Cooper Keene is big. Another player that I think is definitely stepping up for Loyola is Blake Fallbush, who, as a freshman last year, he excelled for the Cubs. And then you also have other players that are stepping up. Johnny Gosser is only a freshman, as he's the libero, which I think is pretty good. Parker Schloss is the setter, which he's a returning player from last year's Loyola team. Simon Capps is also stepping up. He's a junior. Emmett Martin's a senior. Kai Klein, I don't know if he's related to Dylan. He could be, but not entirely sure. But Kai Klein, he's only a junior. And then Hugh Vandaway, he's a senior. He's also stepping up for Loyola. So all in all for Loyola, they're definitely quite dangerous. Though Blake Fallbush was not in the starting lineup when it came to the Loyola Newport Harbor match. Don't know why. Hopefully he's not out. But as for Miracosta is definitely one tough customer. Obviously, when you think of Miracosta, you think of Victor Loyola. But you also have other players that are stepping up, like Johnny Dykstra, who's USC bound. You also have Cooper Keene, who came back. He made a big difference. Mateo Furbringer, he's a freshman. He has been definitely putting in the work for Miracosta. Thatcher Fallbush is actually Blake Fallbush's brother, I imagine. He's got to be related somehow, just because I have seen players from Loyola and Miracosta who are like brothers play on different teams, which I think is pretty interesting if you ask me, like the Wedbushes, though I think they started off at Miracosta and then transferred to Loyola. But Stone Seligson also is a player to watch for on Miracosta. So this is so tough to pick when it comes to this matchup between Miracosta and Loyola. I think both teams are playing at the top of their level, and that's kind of where they want to be. And this is a rivalry which is so big for both of these teams. I don't think it's going to be easy for either of these teams to win, but I got Loyola winning it all. Loyola has not won a CIF Southern Section Championship since 2016, and they've had so many talented rosters. I feel I'm going to regret this in the most part, just because when it comes to Loyola in the big time matches, like last year they lost in the semifinals to CDM or Corona Del Mar. They lost in the 2022 CIF Southern Section Final to Newport Harbor. 2021, they lost to the semifinals to Newport Harbor. 2019, they got swept by Newport Harbor in the semifinals. In 2018, they got swept in the semifinals by Corona Del Mar. And then in the 2017 final, they got swept by Corona Del Mar. So hopefully for the Mustangs' sake, they don't have to face a team from Newport Beach. But they do face another big-time team in Mira Costa. My thing is for Loyola, how many kills is it going to take for Sean Kelly to will this team to victory? That's my big thing right there. But all in all, I got Loyola winning the CIF Southern Section Division I championship. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if the Mustangs of Mira Costa wound up winning it all. But we'll see what happens. I'm going to be in attendance, even though I don't really have a dog in this fight. But I just hope we're getting some good volleyball. I don't even know who I want to sit with, whether it's the Loyola crowd or the Mira Costa crowd. I feel I know more when it comes to the Mira Costa crowd, but I digress. But that's going to do it for the high school boys volleyball portion of the show. We're an hour and 5 minutes into this, so we'll take ourselves a quick break. When we come back, we have some Pro Volleyball Federation to recap, as we have the playoffs are vastly approaching. And then we have some NVA to discuss, so keep it locked here. You are listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, sports fans. It's me, your boy Larry B, and I want to walk you through the world of sports. No, not just the mainstream major TV deal type sports, although those are important too. But let me be your guide through your journey of all sports, from college to the pros, the minors, and everything in between. Each week, we are talking sports galore with true diehards just like you from a hardcore fan's perspective that's sure to quench your thirst around leagues you may know all too well, and some you may even discover here. That's right, sports fans. If you love sports of all kinds, enjoy hearing amazing sports stories, and respect all sports because you know how difficult any of them can be to play or compete in, then this is your show. Join me, your boy Larry B, on the defining moment each week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and let the sports come to you.
Hello, ladies and centers. Hello, sports fans around the world. Hello, IE Sports family. This is Cale Henderson, the host of IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. If you folks are interested in sports in the Vegas area, if you're wanting to have a blast for 1 hour, every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, this is a show built for the Vegas sports fans, where we feature the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, and the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. Hopefully, fingers crossed, MLB team coming soon. Either way, if you folks are looking to have a blast for 1 hour each and every week, tune in Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you folks are interested in Vegas sports news, go to our Twitter, at SinCities_IESR, and you can speak with me, the host, Cale Henderson, at Cale_Henderson on Twitter. At any time, be happy to reply. Always want to reach out to our fans. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with segment number 2 of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely do check out all of our amazing shows, such as The Defining Moment, Sin City Sports, and Chi-Town Weekly. Adam Karnick normally goes live with Chi-Town Weekly every Monday, 1 hour before Set Point goes live normally, so you definitely want to check it out. But let's get on back into that second half of the show. So we got some Pro Volleyball Federation to discuss, as honestly, the season is winding down very, very, very quickly, as after this week is actually the last week of the regular season, and then we've got playoffs. Playoffs? Talk about playoffs? But anyway, so the week actually didn't get started till Wednesday, but I actually do got to recap the San Diego Mojo Orlando Valkyries match, as the Mojo wound up pulling off a big win over the Valkyries in 5 sets in Viejas Arena, 25-18, 19-25, 25-15, 18-25, and 15-11. This was the match filled with runs, and honestly, the Mojo, it was basically the Mojo eking out the win. And I gotta say, the Mojo have been really progressing very fondly. Yeah. And it's going to be such a tight logjam to see who will finish in the final spot in the Pro Volleyball Federation conference, or the Pro Volleyball Federation. But week 15 began on last Wednesday, where the Vegas Thrill ousted the Orlando Valkyries in 5 sets, 24-26, 25-15, 22-25, 25-21, and 15-12. With the loss, the Valkyries actually got eliminated from playoff contention, so the Valkyries unfortunately made history in the worst way, as they wound up being the first team eliminated from playoff contention. But the Thrill have kept their playoff hopes alive, which I thought was no surprise. And then jumping over to Thursday, we had the Atlanta Vibe in their final match of the regular season, taking down the Columbus Fury 25-21, 25-19, and 25-18. The Vibe have locked up the number 1 seed in the playoffs, which is going to be taking in Omaha in terms of the semifinals and championship. With the Columbus Fury losing, the Omaha Supernovas punched their ticket into the playoffs, which I basically was saying it's inevitable, or as Lincoln Arneal said, Lincoln Arneal covers volleyball in the Nebraska area. He also has a podcast as well. Shameless plug. But the Omaha Supernovas clinching a playoff spot was inevitable. It was only a matter of time. And like I said last week, if they weren't going to clinch a playoff spot with the Fury losing, they were probably going to clinch a playoff spot with them winning. So on Saturday, we had the first of 2 matchups in the series between the San Diego Mojo and the Grand Rapids Rise at Van Andel Arena, where the Mojo wound up taking down the Rise in 4 sets, 22-25, 25-18, 27-25, and 25-15. Now that's a huge win for the Mojo, as that puts them a step closer to clinching a spot in the playoffs. And honestly, the Mojo continued to play great volleyball, which I think is great for them. They were supposedly the doormat, but now they've really turned it around. Also on Saturday, we had the Omaha Supernovas taking down the Columbus Fury in 4 sets. Also have to give a shout out to my teammate Jen B, who is the host of the Show of the Land on iSports Radio. She goes live with that every Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Eastern. She was in attendance for the Omaha Supernovas Columbus Fury matchup, which was broadcasted on CBS Sports Network, by the way. The Fury took the first set 26-24. The Supernovas took the second set 25-22. And then they took the third set 25-18. And they took the fourth set 25-20. Finally earning a win over... Oh, actually, no, not finally. They finally earned a win over the Columbus Fury, which the Fury was led by Reagan Cooper, who had 17 kills. Kendall Kipp added 13 kills. She also had 12 digs. Cooper had 10 digs. But that was really awesome seeing one of my IE Sports Radio family members in attendance for a Pro Volleyball Federation match, which I think was spectacular. So thank you to the Columbus Fury for hooking her up with the tickets. I think she won the tickets in a contest, but honestly, however she got the tickets, it's great that she was in attendance. We need more volleyball in terms of IE Sports Radio, but I digress. Then on Sunday, this was kind of a shocker right here. We had the San Diego Mojo and the Grand Rapids Rise facing off against one another at Van Andel Arena, but we had the Rise sweeping the Mojo, finally getting their first win over the Mojo. And with that win, the Rise clinched a spot in the playoffs. Now, I had a feeling the Rise would punch their ticket into the playoffs. It was only a matter of time. I was fearing the worst, that they would find some way to cough up the playoff spot to probably one of the other teams between the Mojo, Fury, and Thrill. But I thought that was kind of a statement win right there for the Rise, as, yeah, I feel that if they did not win that matchup, they maybe would have been in a bad situation going into the final week, because then they would be scrambling and saying, "Oh my God, we got to continue to win. What are we going to do? Oh no!" But the Mojo just did not have their best game, as the Rise wound up winning the match 25-23, 25-18, and 25-16. It seems like the first set seems to be a running theme where if a team loses in close fashion, that seems to be kind of the first domino to fall. And Jen B said that it was so fun regarding the Columbus Fury versus the Omaha Supernovas match, even though the Fury wound up losing, but it is what it is. So this week concludes tonight, as of this recording, when the Omaha Supernovas head down to Lee's Family Forum to take on the Vegas Thrill. So this one is going to be a tough matchup for the Vegas Thrill to win. And unless the Supernovas had plans on resting their players, this one looks like the Supernovas are going to win this one. But you never know with the Thrill. The Thrill took down the Supernovas in their season, or their team debut, in their first match of the season, all the way back in January, if not February. But I digress. But that's happening right now, as I guess I'll give you all a set score update, just so those that are interested or those that are listening live actually have some. Oh yeah, the Supernovas are up 17-10 in set 1 against the Thrill, as make that 18-10 as Samity put down a kill. I think her name is Stephanie Samity or something. Either way, this one should not be difficult for the Supernovas. And okay, misserve into the net, so that's a point for the Thrill. But yeah, this is probably going to be this probably shouldn't be too tough. And yes, Stephanie Samity. She used to play for Minnesota. That's how I know her name. Oh, good. The Thrill just scored off of a service ace. That's a nice little ace right there. As that is a point for... Okay, that's enough live broadcasting when it comes to the Thrill Supernovas match. All right, but the final week of the regular season is upon us, as it starts tomorrow, as of this recording, Tuesday, when the Columbus Fury head down to Viejas Arena to take on the San Diego Mojo. It's very simple for the Mojo. If I'm looking at the Fury's remaining schedule, they have 3 matches, 2 of which are against the Mojo. And if we jump back to the standings right here, the Mojo are 10-11, while the Fury are 8-13. So if my math is correct, if the Mojo win one more match, or the Fury lose one more match, the Mojo are in. The only way the Fury, I think, makes the playoffs is if they run the table and then the Mojo lose out. But it is possible. But here's the thing. The Mojo are still playing some good volleyball. Yes, they got stomped on by the Rise, but I will also just say I think the Mojo are still coming. And if you saw my interview with Uchenna Afoa on X, formerly known as Twitter, the Mojo are definitely heading in the right direction. And here's the thing about the Mojo. The Mojo can actually clinch the third spot if they play their cards right. Because the Rise, if I recall, they only have one match this week, and that's against the Supernova. So, in reality, and the Mojo also play the Valkyries, which are pretty much eliminated from playoff contention, and they kind of have their number, kind of. So the Mojo could clinch the third seed if they play their cards right. I don't think they can get any higher than the third seed, just because the Supernovas are 14-7, and let's be honest, I don't think the Supernovas are losing this week. But crazier things have happened in the Pro Volleyball Federation. I imagine if the Supernovas win tonight, they will lock up the 2 seed. But regardless, they've got the home court advantage no matter what. Because everything in terms of the playoffs is being played at CHI Health Center. But I'm going to probably take the Mojo to beat the Fury. I'll circle back to the Mojo and Fury later on, as Thursday we have the Mojo heading down to Addition Financial Arena to take on the Orlando Valkyries. The Mojo have such a favorable schedule this week, as the Fury kind of don't. But more on that later. I imagine the Mojo will, if they're not beating the Fury, the Mojo are probably beating the Valkyries on Thursday. I mean, the Valkyries don't have much to lose. They don't have anything to lose anymore, except maybe being the worst team in the league. But then again, that could help them draft-wise. But the Mojo, they have to take care of business this week. They can't bank on the Fury losing out, because you never know with the Columbus Fury. They are the most confusing team in all of the Pro Volleyball Federation. And then also on Thursday, speaking of those Columbus Fury, they head down to the CHI Health Center to take on the Omaha Supernovas. If the Supernovas are not clinching the top seed tonight, they're clinching the top seed in this matchup against the Fury. I imagine they're going to be clinching not the top seed, the 2 seed. The Supernovas will be the 2 seed, even though seeding does not matter because the Pro Volleyball Federation Championship goes through Omaha, aka CHI Health Center. But the Fury need this win as best as they can, so we'll have to see what happens. But I imagine the Supernovas are going to win. I'm sorry to the Fury, but they do have one more match after this week, or after that Supernovas matchup, as they host the San Diego Mojo at Nationwide Arena. Like I said, the Mojo, if they win out this week, if they go a perfect 3-0, they could, hence the word could, be the 3 seed. As the final matchup, I guess I should also mention Sunday, the Omaha Supernovas take on the Grand Rapids Rise, but more on that later. But the Mojo, I really like their chances of being the 3 seed. This is such a favorable schedule. The only way the Mojo find a way to fumble the bag is if they fumble it on their own. I can't imagine the Mojo, with how they're playing great volleyball as of late, they would find a way to fumble the bag and be on the warpath of the Atlanta Vibe. Because I feel the Mojo match up better against the Supernovas. As crazy as that sounds, even though they've had bad luck playing at CHI Health Center, I think the Mojo match up better against the Supernovas. But regarding the Mojo, I think this is going to be such a big week for them. They are pretty much on the doorstep of a playoff spot. And again, the only way they don't make the playoffs is if they lose out and then the Fury win out, which would mean the Fury beat the Mojo twice and then they somehow upset the Supernovas in CHI Health Center. But if that happens, then the Fury are in and the Mojo are out. There's only one playoff spot remaining, so you have to take that into consideration. And then I guess a little bit of a for glory matchup is going to be the Vegas Thrill taking on the Orlando Valkyries. Look, I think the Thrill are 8-14. The only way they make the playoffs is if they win out and then the Fury beat the Mojo twice and then they lose to the Supernovas, and then the Thrill win tonight and then for some weird reason they have the tiebreaker, but apparently the Thrill aren't eliminated from playoff contention just yet. So I have not heard. But I imagine the Thrill, this is going to be a for glory matchup. This is going to be the matchup of who finishes not at the bottom and who finishes at the bottom. Or as Larry B in the chat room, or as Larry B calls it, the toilet bowl. But I digress. And Gen B says that that the Columbus Fury are the most confusing team in all of the Pro Volleyball Federation, and it's an Ohio thing. Yes, I agree. All right, like I mentioned earlier, the Omaha Supernovas play the Grand Rapids Rise at Van Andel Arena. The Supernovas have not had trouble against the Rise as they've beaten them the previous 3 times. I imagine the Supernovas will win this time around, even though it's on the road. The only way the Rise don't lose, or the only way the Rise win, is if the Supernovas are resting all their starters. But I don't think that would be the case, just because it's still a little bit of a layoff before the playoffs. Which the playoffs begin on Wednesday at CHI Health Center, and then not this Saturday, but the following Saturday, that is the championship match, which will all be held at CHI Health Center. But there you have it right there. But that's kind of my thing right there. I think the Supernovas are going to clinch the 2 seed. I think the Mojo get the 3 seed, and then the Rise finish as the 4 seed. And then I guess the Fury will finish, I don't know. I think the Fury get the finish 5th. The Thrill get the 6th seed, and then the Valkyries finish dead last. I'm sorry to the Valkyries. I like Amy Pauley as a head coach, but unfortunately, this just not has been her season. It really sucks because they actually have talent on their team, but I digress. All right, but that's that for the Pro Volleyball Federation discussion. I know I didn't go into the meat and potatoes of the stats, but we're kind of approaching the 90-minute mark, which I'm going to dedicate the last part of it to the NVA, because I, Teran Rodriguez, am your one-stop shop for all things NVA news. I wish I could have redone that, but I digress. All right, but the NVA was back somewhat, as they actually had matches this past Sunday, or yesterday as of this recording, at Dana Hills High School. We had the Las Vegas Ramblers taking on the Orange County Stunners, the San Diego Wild taking on the Utah Stingers, and then the Las Vegas Ramblers taking on the San Diego Mojo. So, first match was between the Stunners and the Ramblers, and the Ramblers wound up winning in 4 sets. There were no stat keepers. I actually was ready to take down stats, but I needed to do the scoreboard, and I was not ready to do stats and scoreboard, which included doing digs and assists and kills and attempts and blocks. Like, I'm just going to stick to doing stats regarding kills and service aces. I know that sounds lazy, and I know I'm going to eventually need to learn how to do all stats if I want to become a big-time volleyball person, but I digress. By the way, I have a lot more respect for stat keepers, such as libero trackers and whatnot, but it is what it is. So we had that matchup right there. The Ramblers took down the Stunners in 4 sets. Always a great rivalry between those two teams. And then we had the Wild taking down the Stingers in straight sets. The first 2 sets were kind of competitive, but then the Wild eventually pulled away late in those sets. And then the third set, the Wild just basically broke it loose after they crossed 15 points, and it was pretty much just not really too much of a contest. It also didn't help that the Stingers' lead man, Charles Belvin, had to leave a little early, but it is what it is. So we had the final matchup of the showcase. We had the Wild taking on the Ramblers. The Wild took the first set 25-22, and then the Ramblers took a close contested second set 26-24, I want to say. And then in the third set, the Ramblers took the third set 25-18, I want to say. 25-18 or 25-22, whatnot. Either way, the Ramblers took that second set, which was not too surprising in my opinion. As honestly, I felt the Ramblers had a lot more firepower, but so did the Wild. The Ramblers and Wild had the most firepower of all the 4 teams playing. And then the last part, and then the fourth set, it actually looked like it was going to go 5 as the Wild led 23-18. The Ramblers tied it up at 24 apiece, or 23 apiece, and then eventually the Ramblers took that final set 27-25, which was definitely a big-time win. I wouldn't say a big-time win, but it was 27-25, as I jinxed yet another match that should have gone 5 sets, but did not go 5 sets. But it was a big win for the Ramblers, as it was a big win for the entire NVA. I don't care what anyone says. We got NVA content. We got NVA matches. And definitely do check out my interviews on X, formerly known as Twitter. I did post some of the interviews on Instagram as well. I thought that the Ramblers and Wild would want to post those, or the NVA all of its entirety would post those. But I will just say, I'm still going to be doing stuff for the NVA, and hopefully we'll get another NVA Showcase this upcoming season. Obviously, there was no YouTube stream, and there was no line judges and whatnot. This was basically a showcase to basically display the athletes and the teams all together. And they even had this nice little program which talked about the NVA, and it's a semi-professional men's volleyball league based in the U.S., and the NVA's first season was in 2019, and so on and so forth. And to play. And here's the thing about the NVA, and this is good for the NVA. I feel the NVA is still good for volleyball just because professional or college athletes, if they want to play pro, they would have to go overseas, which would mean they'd be missing birthdays, they'd be missing holidays, they'd be missing time with their family, all that sort of stuff. Whereas if they stay in the NVA and play in North America, then they'd be staying. Then they wouldn't have to miss holidays and whatnot, and they'd be playing with some of their buddies and some of the players that they played against in college volleyball and having a good time. So the NVA is not dead, and I will just say I'm going to do my part to try to promote the NVA and keep it in the correct direction, as well as the likes of Nick England and Teran Rodriguez and so on and so forth. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to drop the beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Set Point. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I really do appreciate you. Shout out to the chat room, Jen B, Mike, Pat, Marcus, Los, great. Patty Backs, I forgot to mention Patty Backs was in the chat room as well. She said, have a great show, Teran. I appreciate you, Patty. Ralph Cleese and Larry B was also in the chat room as well, on live. I appreciate you. I will be back next week. Even though there's no more collegiate volleyball, I will still find a way to talk some volleyball, as we've got the CIF Southern Section Division I playoffs, or the Division I final this Saturday at Cerritos College. If you're in the California area and you want to check out the future players of tomorrow in terms of college volleyball, do so right there. I also have the Pro Volleyball Federation, which I promise you all I will get into a little bit more of the meat and potatoes of it in terms of statistics and whatnot. But until then, have yourself a great rest of the week. Enjoy the volleyball. Soon also, the AVP is coming back. Definitely want to check that out as well. First tournament is going to be next weekend. Not this weekend, but next weekend. But until then, have a great rest of the week. I will see you all on Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Eastern for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. But enjoy the volleyball action. If you're going to be at Cerritos College on Saturday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Time, I'll see you then. Peace!